be 3. Our witnesses today are from Charity Intelligence Canada, Kate Ban, Managing Director, and Greg Thompson, Director of Research. Ms. Ban, Mr. Thompson, welcome to the meeting by video conference. And thank you for agreeing to appear. And I know you had very short notice, and I apologize for that on behalf of the committee. You have a total of 10 minutes for your opening presentation, and then we'll go to members for questions. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Greg Thompson, and I'm the Director of Research for Charity Intelligence. Charity Intelligence is itself a charity, one that analyzes Canadian charities to help donors be informed and give intelligently. Our website hosts free reports on more than 780 Canadian charities and provides insight into specific giving areas such as the environment, cancer, and homelessness. This year, some 314,000 Canadian donors used our website for information on Canadian charities, reading over 1.3 million charity reports. We estimate that our research helped inform and influence $95 million in Canadian charitable giving last year alone. Just as democracy depends on informed citizens, fundamental health of philanthropy rests on well-informed donors. And our own research supports this case. In our surveys of donors who have used our website, 77% say that Charity Intelligence reports have improved their confidence in giving to charities and have inspired these donors to give 32% more money to charities. It's within this context that CI presents to the Finance Committee today. Since 2011, CI has analyzed and reported on We Charity. We Charity Canada is a big piece, but only one piece of what we now know is a highly complex international network of We-related entities. Starting in 2014, CI rated We Charity with our highest 4-star rating based on transparency, reporting, and overhead spending. We Charity ticked all of the boxes and performed well relative to other Canadian charities. September 2019, CI analyzed We Charity's demonstrated impact, the measurable returns from its programs, and found We Charity's impact to be fair. Fair is below average. This reduced CI's rating on We Charity to 3 stars. Our major limitation as analysts is that we are only as effective as the data is reliable. We are analysts, not auditors. CI's August 2019 report on We Charity flagged the following material information: a breach of financial covenants on its $13.7 million in bank debt that its bank has waived for the 2nd year in a row, and the related party transactions with 8% of donations to We Charity going to Me2We, the private business controlled by Mark and Craig Kielberger, to purchase goods and services. In August 2019, an outside party shared with us public records about We Charity's real estate transactions. These transactions were not disclosed as related party transactions on We Charity's audited financial statements. Given this lack of disclosure, we reviewed We Charity's auditor, which has a solid reputation for tax and business. However, the auditor's website only advertised one charity client, We Charity. In our database, no other charity used this auditor. This contrasts with We Charity hiring the most prestigious law firms and its stated commitment to the highest financial transparency. We question why We Charity has not hired leading international auditors to prepare their financial statements, despite being one of Canada's largest charities with global operations. On learning of the resignation and replacement of We Charity's directors in March of this year, we arranged a 30-minute video call with We Charity's Chief Operating Officer. Subsequently, we learned through the media that one of the newly appointed directors had resigned. We were not assured by We Charity's comments or statement. On July 17, 2020, CI issued its strongest alert, a donor advisory. With more news coming to our notice, and after looking at other We entities, we released our list of 10 questions. Primarily, was the Cabinet aware that the CSSG was contracted through We Charity Foundation, a new separate foundation with no employees or assets, rather than We Charity? Why are the Kielbergers not directors of any of the We Charities, but take the title co-founders, which allows them to avoid fiduciary responsibility and evade disclosure? Why has neither We Charity Foundation in Canada or Me to We Foundation in the US disclosed in their regulatory filings the non-arm's length relationships of their 3 directors? Why does We need such a complex organizational structure with multiple single-purpose entities to do its work? This is highly unusual for charities, even amongst Canada's largest international aid charities. We Charity is an outlier. Normal metrics for assessing charities do not adequately reflect its suitability for donors. It is not similar to the vast majority of other Canadian charities. We have flagged these issues because the more donors understand about the entirety of the We network, the better informed they will be and the better able to give intelligently. With that, I'll hand the floor to Kate Bain, Managing Director.
Kate, you're muted there, Ms. Bain. There you go. Oh, you're still muted there. Before you start, I will just give members the lineup for questions. When you're complete, we'll start with Mr. Polyev, then Mr. Francesco Sabera, Mr. Fortin, and Mr. Julian. Okay, floor's yours, Kate. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. My name is Kate Bain. As Managing Director of Charity Intelligence, I prepared the 2 most recent updates on We Charity on August 28th, 2019 and July 10th, 2020. Before answering your questions, I would like to speak to some of the issues that have been raised during your proceedings and on social media about Charity Intelligence and the motives behind our reporting. Let me address these in order. Yes, Charity Intelligence is a small charity. Our annual revenues of $435,000 support a team of 3 full-time staff, supported by exceptional university summer students. This April, we hired another charity impact analyst, so our full-time roster increased by 33% to 4. Charity Intelligence's team answers Canadians' questions about giving, and we update our popular website. Despite our small size, we have demonstrated a significant impact on Canada's charitable giving. And yes, Charity Intelligence lost its charitable status for 1 day in September 2012 because I was late in filing the annual return. I am solely to blame for falling behind in this essential paperwork. It was a hard lesson, learnt well. CI has filed before the deadline in the last 8 years. As to the motivation of our work, it is simply to give Canadian donors the best independent and objective advice we are capable of. Charity Intelligence is not partisan. I do not know the political affiliations of our staff. These matters simply do not come up in our research and analysis of charities. I find partisanship toxic. As you may notice from my accent, like many new Canadians, I come from away to Canada. I am deeply indebted to this amazing country. To some, partisanship may be a sport or a game. Yet as a child, I saw the troubles. I learned of the Orange Men's March, and I heard the bombs. I want no part of that ever again. All of which brings me to the Canada Summer Service Grant. This is a sorry mess. There is one simple solution to help charities at this time of critical need I would like to bring to your attention for consideration. One leg of the 3-pronged CSSG initiative was to help Canadian charities through student volunteers. For many charities, volunteers can be essential in program delivery. But with the COVID shutdown, frontline charities need money. Our biggest concern is about individual giving. Imagine Canada estimates individual giving will drop by between 4.2 billion and 6.2 billion this year. For context, last year, giving was approximately 17 billion. One quick way to address this gap is for our government to increase the disbursement quota of charity foundations and endowments. The disbursement quota is a little known charity regulation. It sets the minimum amount foundations must distribute of their assets to charities each year. Canada's disbursement quota is 3.5%, the lowest disbursement quota in the world. In the US, foundations are required to pay out 5% each year, with people calling for it to be raised to 10% for the COVID response. Over the last 15 years, Canadian foundations have averaged investment returns well above 8%. Today, the investments to private foundations, community foundations, public foundations, and endowments exceed $100 billion. This quota can be changed to 5% by the stroke of our finance minister's pen. It can be just temporary, just enough to help charities through this pandemic. The change between the current 3.5% and 5% may seem small, a 1.5% difference. Mathematically, it's a 43% increase, which would result in an additional $700 million more dollars flowing from foundations to charities this year. The money foundations hold is already tax receipted. This change wouldn't cost the government any additional revenue, but would meaningfully support thousands of frontline charities. More information on this initiative is available at give5.ca. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moranson.
There was a thunderstorm here, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. I thought it's usually you blacking me out, Pierre, not the other way around. Go ahead, Marty. Floor is yours. 6 minutes.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you both Ms. Bain and Mr. Thompson for being here today. Your work on this matter has been exemplary. And I note that as such a small organization, you were able to do so much due diligence on this charity. And yet, compared to the vast resources of the federal government, they seem to have been unable to discover any of the red flags that you've been able to uncover. And I'm wondering, one question I have is how easy would it have been for the federal government to find the information, particularly in the context of the Prime Minister saying on May 8th that he actually pushed back, which should be taken to mean that he wanted extensive due diligence done on this. Why is it the federal government either didn't have this information or chose to ignore it?
Greg, I think We Charity is very sophisticated, and I believe in its regulatory filings, and I've asked others who have greater expertise that if you go through its regulatory filings, it ticks all the boxes. And Charity Intelligence, in our analysis, we use different data. We use audited financial statements, which we find for our purposes to have greater details. So we look also at the government filings, the T3010As, but in the audited financial statements, there's much more disclosure about the balance sheet, the loans, the bank covenants. So I don't know, I think regulators now in Canada, the UK, and the US, I hope, are really going through the filings of all these multiple we entities.
But what I'm actually wondering about is in terms of the government's, the public service doing due diligence on this, would it have been as easy for them to acquire the information that you acquired if they had chosen to?
But I'm not sure which charity they were doing the due diligence on. Was it We Charity or was it We Charity Foundation? Because if you look for We Charity Foundation, it doesn't have a website, it doesn't have financial statements, it doesn't even have a T3010A. So if the government was doing the due diligence on the Shell Foundation, there would be no information. On We Charity, yes, there was information on its website.
That's what I'm wondering, is that they would have been able to uncover most of the information, if not all of the information that you, as a small organization, were able to, with limited resources, were able to uncover. Is that accurate?
And I think it also helps if you have familiarity with financial statements.
Yeah.
to
Well, I'm
read
sure
them.
they have people who are. With a 4-star rating, I was going through your website, and there are literally dozens of charitable organizations across Canada that have your 4-star rating. I noted just a couple, the David Suzuki Foundation and Doctors Without Borders. What is it about WE that caused you to give it only a 3-star rating?
So we charity had a 4-star rating until we analyzed what is called its demonstrated impact. And demonstrated impact takes a look at the charity programs and looks for data showing that the charity has actually made a difference in the lives of folks that it's working with. When we looked at We Charity, as we looked at the data that it provided, we could only come up with a rating of fair, which is below average on We Charity's demonstrated impact, which then reduces its star rating from 4 to 3.
So it would have been a simple matter for those in government doing due diligence on We Charity to be specific about that one, to simply go on your website and for a $20 subscription find out that they had a 3-star rating. Would that be accurate?
We would love for every government agent to go onto our website and take a look at any charity that they're interested in looking at. Certainly, it would be very easy.
Yeah. It seems awfully concerning that all of these red flags were ignored. You had uncovered about the board resigning, the bank covenants that you mentioned, the lack of fiduciary responsibility around the Kielburger brothers not being on the board. It just seems to stretch credulity that the federal government, during their due diligence, wouldn't have been also available of this, given their vast resources. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, during the Kielburgers' testimony, they attempted to discredit your organization, talking about, the charitable license and talking about the small nature of your organization with only 2. I think they talked about 2 individuals working for the organization. Why do you think that they would have gone after your organization to discredit you under these circumstances?
Can I just correct one thing about the board of directors? That was not public information. And that only came out on Twitter that the board had resigned in June. So we were not aware of that material information. It was not posted on We Charity's website. I understand that we get under the skin of many charities, and we have frequent conversations with other charities on this issue. We have been a go-to for the media to share and talk about due diligence and our interpretation of bank covenants, which is different from We Charity's position.
And but in terms of when you saw them do that, the attempt to discredit your organization, did you impugn any motive to them in doing that? Why did you think they did that? Is it you don't?
Greg?
We would not want to impugn any motive on why they would do that.
Yeah.
We've seen them do that before, but.
Yeah. Did they ever contact your organization directly?
Oh yeah, we've been in contact with We Charity. Regularly with management, at least once a year, multiple times during the year on the impact side, back and forth, getting information, and with We Charity, when the government grant was announced, we were outreaching, trying to get the audited financial statements, multiple emails. They were provided by the CFO on July the 8th. And we analyzed them. We had questions, got in contact, said, whenever you have a moment, I know it's extremely busy, couple of clarifications, understanding, management discussion and analysis. We had discussions with the chief operating officer. We set up 2 video calls that went on for 30 minutes, sharing our concerns. Sharing our recommendations on how to shore up donor support. And that's our normal process with charities.
Okay, Marty, we're well over, but if you're on a line of questions, I'll let you I'll let you complete.
No, I guess I would just
another
finish by saying what given the vast resources of the federal government, it seems to, as I said, stretch credulity that they wouldn't have been able to find this information. And I just want to, my one last question is.
And before you ask that, I'll have to tell both witnesses, the interpreters are having a little difficulty hearing you, so speak into the mic and speak a little louder if you could. Neither of you have headsets, so just for their benefit. Marty, last question.
Yeah. And just to clarify this, how easy would, just to put it in simple terms, how easy would it have been for those within the public service doing their due diligence to uncover the same information that you've been able to discover?
The 2019 audited financial statements were posted on We Charity's website, and we believe that due diligence starts with the audited financial statements. So it would be clicking, receiving those documents, and reading through.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Lawyers build a bridge to a full recovery, the rent assistance program. And I think that was the intent of the motion and the report that will be delivered by, I believe it's March of next year. And I think when we're spending time on analyzing an organization, I don't think that was the intent of the motion that was put in place, Finance Minister. I want to put that on record because I think it's important that we understand why we're here, but we are here. But we also need to remind ourselves what the original intent of the motion was. We get these great reports, bi-weekly reports on, we have the 9th report, which was delivered July 23rd, 2020, where the government is spending money to help Canadians. We are spending money so Canadians don't have to take on debt on a personal basis, which I think is a right thing to do. I'm an economist by training. Our response, I think, has been second to none and been top notch in terms of assisting Canadians. And we've seen it in our economic data that's come out because it's been quite constructive. Now, moving on to Charity Intelligence. I was a former sell-side debt analyst, and I was a ratings analyst, and I worked in corporate finance / investment banking in New York City for a number of years. You were a sell-side equity analyst, I believe. I appreciate the work you're doing at Charity Intelligence. It's important, but there's a double-edged sword, because when you make a wrong call, you can actually hurt a charity significantly, because I don't know who's doing the due diligence on Charity Intelligence in your call. And you have had to apologize in the past when you've made that wrong call, when the damage is, I would say, done. Also, you indicated about partisanship and not wanting you look at partisanship in a certain manner. I look at partisanship as debate, about ideas. And I do want to add on record that I believe one of your co-workers, one of your members of the team, is a long-time donor to the Conservative Party of Canada. So I do want to put that on record. There are substantial sums of donations that have been made over the years, so that should go on record. And there's nothing wrong with that. We Canadians have a right to donate to their political parties of choosing, but we should get that on record because your work is very important. But one thing that's very concerned me is the letter by MP McLean. And I wanted to get your opinion. Do you think it's appropriate for political parties and governments to use CRA to audit charities for political purposes? Because we do know that letter would be, and that mandate to have the minister do that would be in violation of what's called Section 241 of the Income Tax Act. Do you think it's right for MPs to say, we need to audit them? We know under the Conservative government, Prime Minister Harper, criticized the Supreme Court of Canada. We know they muzzled scientists.
We're going to have to stay on point here, Mr. Sabara.
Absolutely. So I'd like to go back to Ms. Bohem. Do you think it's appropriate for government, for political parties to mandate audits of charities?
Mr. Sabara, please call me Kate.
Kate, thank you.
I'd love to answer that question. Can I just ask, when did we make a call wrong?
I believe the True North Foundation, I believe it's called. I was doing my due diligence.
Our research report stands. There were 28 charges of errors on our part. We went through extensive legal on that. The error was in my very rude comment on a radio show, calling them a swear word. And I apologized for that, and I paid for that mistake. But there was absolutely nothing in our research or our analysis or our star rating of the True North Youth Foundation in Winnipeg. No, I hope politicians don't use the CRA as an attack.
Sorry, Chair.
We're losing you, Kate, for some reason. Just step back for a minute. And where we started to lose you was when you said, "I hope the CRA." So if you can go back to that point, we lost you at that point. You come through kind of bubbly. Go ahead if you can.
Sorry, my instant laptop. But no, I hope that the CRA is not used as an attack dog.
Okay. Thank you for being so direct on that, because
Greg, you talk if I'm unstable.
Greg, would you like to say something?
No, Kate's point is that we would hope that the CRA is not used to go after charities, but the CRA Charities Directorate does need to be there to make sure that charities are following the guidelines and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, because it concerned me considerably to see a letter written by a member of Parliament that would violate a section of the Income Tax Act, and it harkens back to very dark days under the prior Conservative government, where the CRA, and it was I don't want to say directed, but where we saw court cases. I think it went up to the Supreme Court, if my memory serves me correct, where charities were, I'm going to use the word, under attack by a prior government. And we also seen this the other day on Twitter by Mr. Polyev, where he criticized the action